The craziness continues across the nation in the wake of yet another police shooting. In Atlanta, the death of Rayshard Brooks has sparked continued controversy, as countless law enforcement officers now lay out of work. Two of their fellow officers now face numerous criminal charges, including murder. From pancake syrup to college fight songs, the liberal establishment has completely lost all sense of logic. They are hell-bent, folks, on carving out conservative values from our country. As Joe Biden continues his 78 days of hiding within the confines of his basement to spare himself further embarrassment, John Bolton and the liberal media have set the stage to bring down Trump and his re-election in November. This and a lot more ahead today on the Closet Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Let's get started. This week, the city of Atlanta has joined the ranks of Minneapolis and Louisville as city leaders look to pass the buck onto police unions and racism, white supremacy, if you will, as the scapegoats for police brutality. A convicted criminal, Rayshard Brooks, was shot dead by a Metro police officer earlier this week after passing out in a Wendy's drive-thru line. He assaulted and wrestled with police, stole a taser, and threatened the lives of Garrett Officer Rolfe and Devin Brosnan. Brooks stood up, punched Rolfe in the face, leading to him to have a concussion. He took their taser, ran away, looked back, fired the weapon, and was ultimately shot in the back and died later at the scene. Folks, I have watched this video over a dozen times, and my thought process has not changed. My grandfather used to say, if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Brooks decided to continue a life of crime, and he paid for that decision with his life. Brooks had previously been convicted of false imprisonment, simple battery and family battery, battery simple, and felony cruelty to his children. He had reportedly pleaded guilty to charges dating back to August of 2014. The dad of 4 was sentenced to 1 year in prison and 6 for probation for 1 count and 12 months for each of the other 3 counts. After his revised sentencing, he was sent back to prison in July of 2016, and in December 2019, a warrant was issued for his arrest, which was ultimately revoked a month later. But folks, this is what sickens me. It absolutely sickens me to my stomach and to my core. And here you're watching the television and you see Brooks's widowed wife and all of the left-wing media pundits and politicians who sit there and sit back and again want to make a career criminal, a violent career criminal, into a martyr, a pillar of the black community. This week, Brooks' wife stated just how much of a loving husband and father he was to her and their 4 children. Yeah, I'm guessing nothing illustrates love in that household like beating on the wife, beating and neglecting of the 4 kids. I don't know about you, but that's not how we express love in our family. No. In our family, we give hugs. We give congratulations. We give I love yous. We don't give fists to the face. And we don't get sent to prison for beating on our wife and beating on our children. Let us not forget that Officer Garrett Rolfe sustained injuries and a concussion after being punched by Brooks during the struggle. So it's apparent that this guy's got violent tendencies anyway. But let's not forget that, okay? But in typical fashion, the BLM and the liberals in this country saw nothing more than a black man killed at the hands of a white police officer. That is all that they saw. Violence, including arson and the destruction of private and public policy in public buildings, ensued, has been the case across the nation. The rioters even took to the burning down of the Wendy's restaurant. No media sympathy was given to the owner of the business or to the lives and sustainability of those employed, dependent on the work at that Wendy's restaurant for a paycheck, folks, to take care of themselves and their families. No sympathy given to them in any way, shape, or form. It was all hype. It was okay to go burn down buildings. And in the end, a black man lay dead, and suddenly anything and everything, regardless if it had to do with what occurred or contributed to the death of Brooks, is suddenly open to destruction. Which brings me back to the college fight song and the syrup that adorns my hot stack of flapjacks. I'm fired up about this, folks. This week, PepsiCo and Quaker announced that they would remove the iconic Aunt Jemima that was displayed on breakfast tables of America since 1889. It would appear that for over 131 years, the sweet taste of syrup has led to the further degradation of the African American race. Who knew? Folks, if you haven't heard by now, this next illustration is by far the craziest and pandering move of an organization to date. On Thursday, the University of Florida stated that they would discontinue its Gator Bait fight song because, wait for it, horrific, historic, racist imagery associated with the phrase. That came from school president Kent Foch, as he said in an open letter on Thursday. Anyone who knows anything about the school's athletic team, the University of Florida Gators, and when the fight song is played, folks, fans in the crowd would imitate a choppy motion with their arms and shout, "Gator bait! Gator bait!" But like poor old Aunt Jemima, even the slightest thought of racial imagery rears its ugly head to just a few. Come to find out, gator bait, it would appear, the imagery with that dates back to the late 1880s when black babies were killed at the hands of Klan members. And thus, as we all move forward in removing a college fight song, because it reminded some folks 140 years ago of the horrific murders conducted by white racists of the Old South. This is absolute bull malarkey, folks. Come on. What are we talking about? We're talking about a college fight song when thousands and thousands of Florida Gator fans are hand-chomping and cheering for their team against a rival. Nowhere on ESPN or ABC or NBC or CBS have I ever seen any representation of the murder of black children during a Florida Gator football or basketball game. And you haven't either. The left is insane in this nation, and they will stop at absolutely nothing until they strip any possible pandering, far-fetched representation of racism away in this country. And for those of you that are out there and brave and you're iron stomach enough to watch the mainstream media outlets of CNN and MSNBC, and if you are white, you would think that we all have an eye-hole cut sheet somewhere hanging in our closets. And Lord forbid if you disagree with someone on any of this stuff, because if you do, you are suddenly labeled a racist bigot, Trump enthused, hate-hearted Klan member. I've had it with this garbage. I am not a racist, and personally, I don't know anyone who is. You know why? Because I'm a God-fearing American. I love people for what they are. Black, brown, yellow, red, lavender. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care what color that you are, but I do care what kind of person that you are. For those of you out there that complain about being labeled and treated like a criminal, I have the perfect solution for you. Stop acting and behaving as one. My parents and grandparents taught me long ago that you will be judged on your actions and those who you hang with. For the left in this country, it isn't your fault if you're weak. It isn't your fault if you're a criminal or you can't afford to feed your family. No. It's society's fault. It is the actions of our nation's ancestors 150 and 200 years ago that made African Americans the overly criminal minority class in this country. For the pandering left, it's corporate branding and college fight songs that bring about racism. No, it's statues that incite racial insensitivity. It isn't personal accountability that we need in this country. No. We need watered down hidden history taught in our classrooms. We need to eradicate the wrongs of our nation, and in doing so, we will move into a perfect utopian society where everyone puts nothing forward and receives endless compensation in return. Our founding fathers were wrong for slavery. They were also wrong for a lot of other things. But does that mean that they were wrong in the creation of our democracy? Absolutely not. Our nation is a fascinating experiment. We have all been and we will continue to be the mightiest and most merciful nation of men and women on the planet, but only when those within our country, and they know the ones I'm talking about, we will only be better and be the best that we can be if they will suck it up, understand that life is not fair, but that you treat people with respect. You get what you give in this world, and apply and take accountability for their actions. As always, I want to thank you all for tuning in to today's podcast. I want you all to know that although race was a factor in our nation's founding, it is not in any way our nation's foundation. We live in a land of absolute freedom, but that does not give us the right to take the life of the innocent, no matter what, even if you're a law enforcement officer. We do not have the right to trample on another's God-given rights or blame others for our shortcomings and mistakes. Race is like love, folks. It is what you make it. It is high time that our nation sees the soul behind the shade of skin and quit blaming race as the rat running rampant among our country, eating away the cheese and choices of others. We need to get out from underneath the backwardness of black oppression that was given to us on a silver platter in an 8-year Obama administration, and is also the path of his seated and opportunistic minions in D.C. and abroad. May God be with you all, and as always, be safe, be mindful, but most of all, be American. This is Eric Wright, and this has been the Closet Conservative Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Please remember to give a 5-star review and share our podcast with your friends. The Closet Conservative Podcast is a production of The Liberty Loft. Copyright The Liberty Loft 2020. You can find more shows and information on our website, www.thelibertyloft.com, or any of our social media channels.